We're now going to look at multiplying with integers. So at the beginning, this is, oh, so much new stuff. Looking for the pencil sharpener?
Yes.
It is right here. I don't know where. Okay. First of all, an introduction to something. Have you seen multiplication written that way? 3 times 2. What's the answer? 6. Okay. This is some of the very first multiplying you did was with a positive number times a positive number. It's kind of dying the batteries. I got to think I need to add some new ones. If that doesn't work, there's another one there that uses hand battery.
Yeah, I think you need some new batteries.
Okay, I'll put some in. Thank you. It's good enough? Okay. Now, this is a multiplication sign that you use in middle school and elementary school. Once you get into high school, and we're going to be doing some of this year, you start with some algebra. I know, it's fun. Just we'll get there. It is lots of fun. But in algebra, we often use the letter x in algebra for something called a variable. And so sometimes multiplication, have you ever seen multiplication with a dot? Some of you have. Perfect. If you haven't seen it before, it's another symbol for multiplication. Another thing that sometimes shows up as multiplication is just 2 numbers in brackets beside each other. Have you seen that before? Yes? Excellent. So this would also be 3 times 2, 6. And sometimes we might think, jeepers people, can't we just think of one thing and stick to it? Why do we have to complicate things and have like, oh, this x is multiplication, but this one isn't. Oh, now we have a dot, and it's multiplication, but this one isn't. Now that dot is in the middle. It's not on the bottom, because if it was on the bottom, it would look like a decimal, right? So with that, the reason I have these dots here, I'll highlight them. This dot, and this dot. Those were there to be multiplication. And if you have a positive number times a positive number, just like 3 times 2, our answer is a positive number. But if we have a positive number times a negative, and at this place, I'm going to also write or a negative number times a positive number, that's always equal to a negative number. So for example, if I have 4 times negative 2, or negative 2 times 4, my answer will be negative as well. Have you heard that before? A positive times a negative is a negative. Now, if we think about what does multiplication mean, this is going to make sense. And we'll talk a little bit about it when we do 8 times negative 4. And finally, if you have a negative number times a negative number, it's equal to a positive number. So I'll add one more example. Negative 3 times negative 3 would equal positive 9. Yes? We'll do some examples first. Can you wait till we have a couple done and then go at that time? Okay. So an explanation. Why is it, I mean, you've done positive times positive equals positive. That one is straightforward. You're probably like, that, I'm good with that. But why is it that a positive number times a negative number is a negative number? Okay? Well, if we think about what multiplication means, 3 times 2 means you have 3 2's. Okay? There we go. 2, another 2, another 2. How many do I have in total? 6. because it's 2 plus 2 plus 2, 3 times makes 6. So if I have 8 times negative 4, it means that I have negative 4, oh, why did I choose 8? How many have I got so far? I'm going to have to erase some of this off to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, man. 6, 7, 8 of them. We have 8 negative 4s. If you think of your number line, you're starting. I'm not going to do them all. You're starting here at negative 4. Then you add a negative, which means you're going to go like subtracting and go back. Then you're going to get to negative 8, then negative 12, then negative 16, then negative 20, then negative 24, then negative 28. And finally, after doing it 8 times, you're going to get to negative 32. Now, it's not very efficient to always have to count. So what we do is we say, oh, if I recognize this is the pattern that happens, I have a positive number times a negative number, my answer is going to be negative, then I can just go to my regular times table and say, if I know what 8 times 4 is, 8 times 4 is 32. And again, this is where we really have to practice our multiplication table all the way through so that we know it as best as possible. If I know that 8 times 4 is 32, and I know that a positive times a negative is going to be negative, I can just write my answer is going to be negative 32. So if we go to our next example, we won't do a number line for this. A negative times a negative is going to give us a positive number. And so if we know that the answer is going to be positive, you don't have to write a positive sign, but I'm just putting it there to remind myself. What is 4 times 7? 28. And so our answer is going to be a positive 28. Here we've got the dot for multiplication. So this means negative 9 times 3. First of all, is the answer going to be positive or negative? Negative. So we can put that sign out in front. And then we just have to ask ourselves, what's 3 times 9? 27. Dividing works the same way as multiplication. So if you divide a positive number divided by a negative number, you're going to get a negative. A positive divided by a positive is positive. A negative divided by a negative, just like multiplication, that will be positive as well. Do you know a bunch of different ways of writing divide? Okay, have you seen this symbol before for divide? Okay, have you seen this one before for divide? No? So that one's new? Oh, so if you hit the divide button, the slash button comes up on the calculator. So you might have seen it there. It's another symbol for dividing. Sometimes they show dividing like this. When it's written as a fraction, that also means dividing. 36/12, that's how you would say that as a fraction, means 36 divided by 12, or negative 12 in this case. So these are the different ways that we can have dividing show up. Again, a positive divided by a negative, rules stay the same for dividing that they do for multiplying. My answer is going to be negative. And then, how many 12s are in 36? 3. So the answer becomes negative 3. One of the reasons why it's really important to know your times table well, to know quickly, like 4 times 8, 32, is because when you get to dividing, if you don't know your times table well, it makes dividing harder. Because really, when I'm asking 63 divided by 9, or negative 63 divided by negative 9, I'm asking myself, what times 9 is 63? 7. So we know that the answer is going to be 7. If I have a negative divided by a negative, the answer will be positive, and so I'll get positive 7.